Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be giving my final picks for the Week 8 NFL slate on Draftkings. We're going to take a final look. We're going to talk through some of my favorite plays for this Week 8 slate. Something new we're going to do in the next slide or the slide after, we're going to take a look at some of the injuries that we need to keep a watch on. I am recording this video on Friday. I do want to talk about some of the big injuries we need to watch as of Friday. This is going to be something that I put into all my final look videos every week. So just before we do get started taking a look at some of my favorite picks for this week, I would appreciate it if you guys would drop a like on this video and let me know down in the comments who are some of your favorite plays for this Week 8 slate. You can also leave any feedback as well. Any feedback is always appreciated down in the comment section. And if you are someone that's new to the channel, if this is your first time checking out a video on my channel, thank you so much for clicking on the video. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell, so that way you get notified every time I upload and you'll never miss out on a new video. I upload a ton of NFL content throughout the week while also putting up daily NBA videos as well. So you're going to want to make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, so that way you never miss out on any of my new videos. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of the biggest injuries that we need to watch as of Friday. Now, these are just four of what I think are some of the biggest injuries to watch. There are obviously more guys questionable than just these four players, but I think these are some of the biggest injuries to watch that really impact the slate. So starting off with Matt Ryan, he's questionable as of Friday. I think just if he is out, that is a downgrade to the Falcons' offense as a whole if he does not play. If he does play, then I do really like Calvin Ridley and Austin Hooper. Mohamed Sanu got traded to the Patriots, and I think with Mohamed Sanu gone, that is a big boost for both Ridley and Hooper. So they do become very good plays if Matt Ryan plays. If Matt Ryan is out and it's Schaub starting at quarterback, I really don't have a ton of interest in any of the Falcons pass catchers. It's just kind of a big downgrade to the Falcons offense as a whole if Matt Ryan is out. And then two of the biggest injuries to watch this week, two of the most impactful injuries are going to be Alvin Kamara and David Johnson at the running back position. So if Alvin Kamara sits this week, we saw last week how Latavius Murray was used against the Bears. He had like 25 carries. He got a ton of work in the passing game as well. If he is out again, then Latavius Murray becomes a great play at 5,800. It's a great matchup against the Cardinals. Cardinals have been really bad against running back this year. I didn't play Murray last week, which was one of the big mistakes I made last week. If Kamara's out this week, I'm going to be on Latavius Murray for sure, especially at only 5,800. He didn't see enough of a price bump, especially for the matchup against the Cardinals. So Latavius Murray is a very strong play if Kamara's out. If Kamara plays, he could be someone you use in tournaments because I'm for sure he'll be low owned because he's been questionable all week. I probably won't be going there, but if you want to play Kamara, this is probably the week to do it if he plays because he's going to be really, really low owned in GPPs. But then the next one is David Johnson. So David Johnson questionable as of Friday. The Cardinals, I believe, did pick up a couple running backs, so that probably means David Johnson is most likely going to be out this week. If he is out, then I think Chase Edmonds becomes a great play. It is a tough matchup against the Saints. The Saints have been very good versus running backs this year, but Chase Edmonds he's so electric. He's shown so much upside when he gets touches. He's going to get work in the passing game as well. They will definitely use Chase Edmonds in pass down situations. He's going to see a ton of snaps. He should see a ton of volume as well if David Johnson is out. Even with David Johnson healthy some weeks, we still seen Chase Edmonds put up pretty big scores even in limited touches with DJ out. DJ only played one snap last week. Chase Edmonds went nuts against the Giants. Tougher matchup here, but I expect another solid game from Chase Edmonds. If DJ's out, I will definitely have exposure to him, even in a tough matchup against the Saints. And then the last guy I want to talk about is Keenan Allen. He's a big question mark we're going to have to keep an eye on as of Friday. So Keenan Allen did not practice on Friday. I think it's a big boost to Austin Eckler, Hunter Henry, and Mike Williams if he does not play. Probably how I would rank those guys would be my preference. I'd probably go Henry number one. I think Henry's already a strong play to begin with at tight end. If Keenan Allen is out, then Hunter Henry just becomes even better play. Mike Williams is only 4K at receiver, so he'll become a really good value if Keenan is out. There are a lot of good strong running back plays on this slate, so I don't know how Austin Eckler is going to rank there, but Eckler should see some more work in the passing game if Keenan Allen is out, but I don't think he's going to be a top priority for me. It's mostly going to be Henry and Williams that I really look to if Keenan sits. But those are just some of the big injuries we need to watch as of Friday and how they impact the slate and how I think I'm going to be approaching this slate if said guys are out or in. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of my favorite plays now for this Week 8 slate. Starting off at quarterback, my favorite expensive quarterback this week is going to be Deshaun Watson at 7,100. it is close between him and Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's a great option as well facing the Falcons. We saw how bad this Falcons defense is, especially versus the pass. But I think I do slightly prefer Watson, especially because we've seen when the Seahawks are ahead, they tend to run the ball a lot more than throw the ball. Like if the Seahawks are up 17-0 or something, or 14-0, if they get an early lead, they're going to run the ball a lot in the second half, and Russell Wilson just won't throw much. So I think I do prefer Deshaun Watson. The Texans are a lot more likely to keep their foot on the gas pedal, even if they do get a big lead. We know that Watson, he's one of the highest upside quarterbacks in fantasy. Now he gets a matchup at home against the Raiders. It's a great spot for the passing game. I have a lot of interest in stacking Watson with some of his receivers. You can obviously stack him with DeAndre Hopkins, but with Will Fuller out for this game, I think that's going to make Kenny Stills a very solid option. Kenny Stills is very cheap on DraftKings, only $4,700. He should be playing a ton of snaps with Fuller out. Should see plenty of volume as well. So I really like Deshaun Watson at the top of the quarterback position. Probably won't be playing him in cash because I just don't know if there's going to be enough value to where we can pay up for quarterback in cash games. But for tournaments, obviously, especially in my 3 GPP lineups, I'm for sure going to have Watson in at least one of those 3 lineups. But now the value quarterback that I like this week is Ryan Tannehill, 5,100 on DraftKings. So it might sound gross, but it's a really good spot for Ryan Tannehill at home against his bad Buccaneers defense. The Buccaneers have been very solid against the run this season, but they continue to really struggle pass defense-wise, and their secondary is not good either. Tannehill was good last week at home against the Chargers. He got the start over Marcus Mariota. He was very solid. He went for 23 DraftKings points, threw for 312 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just a very solid game from Tannehill, and now he gets a much better matchup at home against the Buccaneers. So we could see a similar performance for Tannehill here, and I don't see the Titans running game having much success on the ground here because this Buccaneers defense is so good on the ground at stopping the run. I don't see Derrick Henry having much success, so that should mean the Titans are going to have to probably throw the ball more than they would like, and obviously that's going to be good for Tannehill and going to set up well for Tannehill. So really like him as a value. His receivers are very cheap as well. Corey Davis is 4,400. A.J. Brown is 4,100. You can easily stack Tannehill with one of his receivers, and that's probably going to allow you to pay up for at least 1 or 2 expensive running backs. I think Tannehill just gives you so much upside to return so much value on this price, and he makes for a great cheap play at quarterback for only 5,100. But now moving on to running back, Saquon Barkley is a guy that I like at the top this week. 8,900 on DraftKings. I feel like one of the toughest choices you're going to have to make this week, especially for cash games, is whether to pay up for Barkley or Christian McCaffrey. To begin the week, I was thinking Christian McCaffrey was just like the best play just because of the volume he's going to see every week, but Barkley's probably going to get close to the same amount of volume that CMC is. It is such a much better matchup for Barkley than Christian McCaffrey, which is why I'm leaning Barkley now. Barkley against the Lions. The Lions have been really bad against the run lately. They got torched by Dalvin Cook. They've allowed a lot of rushing touchdowns just these last few games. They've been allowing a lot of receptions to running backs as well. So I really like Saquon Barkley here. Truly worst possible matchup for Christian McCaffrey. Like Christian McCaffrey having to go on the road to face the 49ers, who have maybe one of the best defenses in the NFL. Just such a totally different matchup for both guys. Barkley's in a great spot. McCaffrey's in a terrible spot. Obviously, McCaffrey might be a little bit more talented, maybe gets more usage, but I just prefer the matchup for Barkley, and I think that's why I'm going to roll with him over CMC for 300 less this week. There is a lot of value at wide receiver. We will talk about some cheap receivers that I like this week. That should make it pretty easy to pay up for Barkley, if not multiple stud running backs. You could probably get in, if you wanted to play Barkley and CMC together, you probably could do it this week because there's a lot of good value receiver. There's also a couple cheap running backs that are going to be viable as well. But at the top, really like Saquon Barkley this week. Definitely my favorite stud running back. But another stunning running back I'm going to be on is Leonard Fournette, 7,800 on DraftKings. We know that he is a true bell cow right now. He's getting all the work he can handle. Last week he got 31 touches against the Bengals. He's just being used so much in this offense, getting probably 20, 25 carries a game. He's getting a ton of targets as well. They're using him in the passing game a lot. It's a great matchup at home against the Jets as well, a game that sets up positively for the running game. The Jets do have a very bad run defense, and the Jaguars right now are 6-point home favorites. So they should be feeding Fournette a lot in this game. He gives you the same kind of usage that Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley are going to give you, but for $1,000 less. Like, you might get more touches from Fournette than you get from those two guys, and he's $1,000 less. And you could argue that he has the best matchup out of all three of them. So Love Leonard Fournette this week. I think he's another strong play. It's probably going to be paying, or in cash games, I think you're going to pay up for Barkley and Fournette. And then in your flex spot at RB3, that's kind of where it gets tricky, whether you go to like someone we're going to talk about next, or maybe you play like Murray or Chase Edmonds if Kamara, DJ are out. That's probably going to be one of the biggest question marks this week. But the value running back I want to talk about is Ty Johnson, 4,900 on DraftKings. So with the status of Kamara and DJ unknown as of Friday when I am recording this video, I will be looking to Ty Johnson as a value running back. I think if DJ and Kamara wind up being out, that's probably going to change things. I'm probably going to try and get up from Ty Johnson to Latavius Murray in cash games. But assuming Kamara and DJ both play and that takes Edmonds and Murray off the board, then I think Ty Johnson's probably going to be the running back I use at RB3 in cash for only 4,900. So Kerryon Johnson, we know, hit the IR. He's going to be out for the Lions. That pretty much leaves Ty Johnson and J.D. McKissic as the two running backs that the Lions are going to use most. They do have 4 active running backs on their roster, but I don't see them using Paul Perkins or Trey Carson much. It's going to be Johnson and McKissic pretty much getting all the work. I think Johnson's going to be used in like first down, second down situations. McKissic will probably be the pass down back, but even in spots where first down, second down situation and Johnson's on the field, he has the ability to catch balls out of the backfield. We've seen them use him in the passing game as well. He's not going to be used like Kerryon Johnson. Like Kerryon wasn't getting any targets at all. I think Johnson's going to see targets along with the carries he should get as well. Probably he's going to get anywhere from like 15 to 18 touches. And at 4,900 in a matchup at home against the Giants, I think he makes for a pretty strong value running back, especially if Murray and Edmonds don't become playable if both of those guys wind up playing. But now moving on to receiver, I really like DeAndre Hopkins at the top for 8,100. I'm definitely going to be pairing him with Deshaun Watson in at least one of my 3 GPP lineups. So we know where the target share for the Houston receivers is going to go. Their target share was already pretty tight to begin with. Now with Will Fuller out, we know who's going to get the targets. It's going to be DeAndre Hopkins. Kenny Stills should be looking at plenty of volume. You might see Kiki Kuti get some targets as well. But it's mostly going to be Hopkins and Stills that get a lot of the targets from Watson. And Hopkins finally erupted last week against the Colts, going for 9 catches, 106 yards, and a touchdown. Scored 28.6 DraftKings points, got 12 targets. Had a big game last week. I expect another big game from Hopkins this week, and it's a great matchup at home against the Raiders. If this game can stay competitive and the Texans are forced to throw, then I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a smash play, and I'm definitely going to be pairing him with Watson, especially in lineups where I maybe don't pay up at running back and go with some of the cheaper guys or some of the mid-range running backs. But now the next guy I like is John Brown, 5,900 on DraftKings. So I love this spot for the Bills passing game. Targeting quarterbacks and wide receivers against the Eagles is something I've been doing all season. The Eagles have been very good against the run this year. They have really struggled versus number 1 wide receivers. They have one of the worst secondaries in the league. So this is a great spot for John Brown. I'm going to have a ton of exposure to him. Not sure if I'm going to get there in cash games, but for tournaments, he's definitely going to be a part of my player pool. He remains underpriced for the amount of volume he's getting every week. He's seeing pretty much 6 to 8 targets every week. We've seen some weeks he gets like 10 to 12 targets. And obviously it's a great matchup, like I said, against a bad Eagles secondary. John Brown has elite speed. Josh Allen always targets him deep. John Brown does run a lot of deep routes. So he gives you a crazy high ceiling for GPPs. Both Allen and Brown give you a lot of upside. And that's definitely a stack that I'm going to be targeting in tournaments this week. Love John Brown at 5,900. And then lastly, I'm looking at A.J. Brown as a value receiver for 4,100. So I talked about it at the beginning when I talked about Ryan Tannehill. I think both Corey Davis and A.J. Brown are way too cheap for this matchup at home against the Bucs. Just choosing between the two, I think I'm leaning Brown right now. I feel like he's the more talented receiver. I feel like he gives you a little bit more upside. You could obviously go with Corey Davis, but I think A.J. Brown's the guy that I want, especially because he's $300 cheaper than Davis. And I believe Brown, even though he wasn't as productive as Davis last week, he did see a few more targets than Corey Davis did. Like I said, great matchup against a very bad Bucs pass defense, very bad secondary. And both Davis and Brown were productive last week with Tannehill at quarterback. They both saw a pretty decent amount of targets. I think Davis got 6 targets and Brown got 8 targets. It's probably going to be the same this week. Davis did get into the end zone last week. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Brown's turn to get into the end zone here. So he's the wide receiver that I like to pair with Ryan Tannehill. But if you want to go with Corey Davis, obviously that makes sense as well. You could honestly do a double stack, Tannehill stacked with Brown Davis, and then maybe play like Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, or maybe even O.J. Howard if he plays. That could definitely be a viable GPP stack. But let's go ahead and talk about tight end now. So Hunter Henry at 4,900, I really like at the tight end position. So I did talk about him in the beginning with Keenan Allen questionable for this game. That would be a big boost for Hunter Henry. I think Hunter Henry is already a strong play, even if Allen is able to go. But if Allen is out, then Hunter Henry just becomes even better at 4,900. So in the 3 games that he's been healthy this year, he's been one of the most productive tight ends so far this season. He still remains underpriced on DraftKings. It's a matchup against the Bears that people might think is tough, but the Bears' defense hasn't been as good this year, especially against the run. I mean, they've really struggled against the run. And versus tight ends, they haven't been that good either. I believe they did allow Josh Hill to score last week, or the Saints tight end scored on the Bears last week. Wouldn't be surprised if Henry gets into the end zone this week. And just looking at the tight end position, it's pretty weak. Like it is most weeks, tight end's never really a position where you see a ton of great plays. But it's pretty tough this week. There's not a lot of viable options I see. So getting a cheapish tight end that's going to get probably 6 to 8 targets, going to get plenty of looks in the red zone. That's what I look for at tight end, and Hunter Henry fits that build. We know he's going to get probably 6 to 8 targets in the red zone. They're going to use him a ton. So really like Hunter Henry at tight end for 4,900. And then lastly, at defense, I'm looking at the Panthers' defense for cheap, only 2,400. So the Panthers this season have been able to generate a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and lately this 49ers offense has not looked good at all. They've been really struggling. Jimmy G has really been struggling. He's been turning the ball over a lot. I think this is a really good spot for the Panthers. They're getting multiple sacks, forcing multiple turnovers pretty much every week. That's what we look for when targeting a cheap defense. We want a defense that's going to put pressure on the quarterback, going to force the quarterback to make bad decisions. The Panthers' defense is so cheap at 2,400. That's going to allow you to fit in the stud running backs and stud receivers that you want. Rarely do I pay up for defense. I know some expensive defenses this season, especially the Patriots' defense, have kind of broken slates and had really big games. I just don't see that being the case this week. I think there's so many good cheap defenses. You got the Texans at home against the Raiders, the Jags at home against the Jets, like all under 3K. You got the Panthers. There's some other defenses. I think the Colts against the Broncos is cheap as well. So many good cheap defenses this week. I'm not going to be paying up, and I definitely like the Panthers at just 2,400. Even though they're on the road, I still think they're very valuable this week. But that's it for my plays for this Week 8 slate. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Thank you so much for watching. I do really appreciate it. You'll notice on the screen I have one of my more recent videos popping up on the screen. If you want to check that video out, feel free to do so. You can also click on my face to subscribe to the channel. You can click on my YouTube logo. And feel free to leave any comments, any questions, any feedback down below in the comment section. Like always, I do appreciate that. That's pretty much it, guys. Good luck this week. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.